Hi, this is Adiba Twigg. I'm your happy coach, and you are watching P3 on Rise Above TV.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Rise Above TV, where we are empowering humanity and supporting unity. You're watching P3, the place where we feature individuals who've tapped into their power, passion, and purpose. I'm your host, Jamie Terrazas, and today I'm thrilled to have the lovely, happy coach, Adiba Twigg. I actually met her, it was like right before COVID, and she had this amazing wellness center here in San Antonio, Texas, and I was looking for a place to start doing some of my work out of, and through a friend, I ended up meeting her, and it was so lovely. And then, of course, COVID happened, right? So she has still been doing her work as a happy coach and a wellness coach. She's very much in alignment in the concept of knowing thyself and really empowering yourself, taking your wellness into your own hands. And she does it in a lot of different ways. And she's actually somebody who is living the thing that she's teaching and sharing with people. It's actually the way she's being that is impacting others. So thank you so much, Adiba, for being with us today. I'm excited to share this time with you.
Thank you, Jamie. This is awesome. Thank you for coming into my life. It was just one of those things, like we've talked before, things happen, and when you become aware, you realize how you are here to just help me step into my best self. And so thank you for having me. It's awesome.
Yes, we really did come into each other's lives at a really interesting time. And there was a lot that I was able to learn from you. It's kind of like when you're around like-minded people, but then there's also some skills and tools that they just naturally have a knack for or have been practicing, right? And so having strategies, and it's one thing to have an idea. It's a whole nother thing to actually birth the idea into life. So, I'm sure your story is really interesting in how you even got into wellness for your own self. So I'm just curious, like, when did you start becoming more self-aware or caring to care about yourself in the way that you do? Where did that start?
I love that, caring to care about yourself. You know what, Jamie, after we connected and you invited me to come on, a lot of things over the last few years, and especially since COVID hit, I think for a lot of people, it's been such an awakening, right? We've had the time to kind of reflect on a lot of stuff. But I want to say that a lot of it started when I was young, like a little girl. And just from community and culture and just the influence from my surrounding, I denied those feelings, right? Like there was conflict. So it's really interesting to see how it's evolved, but I always had this sense of like, but I know it's going to be okay. And it was like, I'm so grateful for that. And I really believe that we all have that. It's just that more and more now that, our world
yes
tries to kind of push that aside, or like make us question that more. So I want to say this, I'm just so grateful that really resonated with me since I was a little girl. So even whenever I was scared or anything, I just always knew there was something, it's going to be okay. I always just knew that.
Yeah, it's almost like resilience, right? This outlook of like all is well, which is a very powerful piece of scripture. All is well, you just innately knew, which says something really interesting too, right? Because not, like you said, not everybody has that. Where did you grow up? I love your accent. What could you tell us just a little bit about that, your culture and that time of your life that you were going through some things and already had that feeling?
Well, I grew up in Egypt. I was born and raised in Cairo, Egypt.
Cool.
A long time ago. Time flies. So my mom was originally from Belgium and my dad was Egyptian. They're both gone. They passed away. My mom passed away about going on 10 years ago this month. And then my dad passed away, 28 years ago, I believe it is now. Yeah. And then my mom was Catholic, my dad was Muslim, and I grew up in Egypt. It's a Muslim country, and we learn about Islam in school. That was part of the curriculum to learn about it. And then when I moved to the States, I was almost 14. So I finished the 8th grade, went into high school, was, had the opportunities to be in a culture that was more Christian based. So I went to churches, had neighbors that were, either pastors or involved in the church, and started learning, and of course, opening up more with my mom as I got older, I had questions and that. So I feel very, very, very blessed. And I know it's part of my, who I am and what I was meant to be. My purpose is to be, experience all that. I still, like, if I really resonate, and I think share that with you, with Islam, and on a foundational basis of I believe in God, and that everything is going to be okay because I'm his servant, in a kind of a nutshell, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now that makes sense to me, how as a little girl, even before being taught, about religion and all that, is that I had that connection. And then learning about religion just kind of validated that for me more. And I came to the States, I totally, I want to say the word, I don't use that word a lot, but I hated it. It was so life-changing. It was so different. The language, the way the school is, everything. It was just so overwhelming. And I remember telling friends later on, it's like, I don't know what I had done in my life to get punished like this.
Because it's traumatizing. People really underestimate that type of adverse childhood experience. Like, I don't even know if that's in the ACE testing, but it needs to be, like, when somebody moves a lot, or especially if you're moving from one country to another, where all the systems and the language and everything, it's just, you're really like thrown into the deep end, so to speak. So I can understand why you felt like it was torture.
I think because I lost my ability to communicate, like I didn't know how to express, and that added to the, questioning myself, like, because I couldn't express myself. I didn't know. And I mean, communication and words are powerful, like, I mean, if you're not able to speak it or show it in some way, this is how we grow, and this is how we live out our purpose, and that's how it's by communicating in some form or another. So I, looking back, that's probably the toughest part, is communicating, and then being very self-conscious, because what I was wearing, and in Egypt, growing up in that culture, it wasn't like, we didn't wear the hijab and the cover up. We weren't just every day, like here, like that wasn't a big difference. Like, an example was like when I had PE in Egypt, I would wear my PE shoes to school, being ready for that. I did that one time in high school, and man, the kids, it's like, what is she doing? What's wrong with her? Like, so I felt so self-conscious. It's like, this was normal to me. So I learned a lot.
Yeah, you're like, wait, what? This isn't normal. Now I'm being made fun of. And then so it was like that extra bullying that just added the stress to everything else.
Yeah. The bullying, and then, I experienced bullying just within the family atmosphere. And when I say bullying, it's more of people wanting to belittle you and take over and make you do what they think you should be doing, and for their pleasure, for them controlling you. So that had a lot of impact on me, getting quieter and quieter. But I, like I mentioned to you in the email, my smile always opened conversations. And then I realized that there were people out there that took advantage of that. So through life is really connecting with, what is my purpose and what is my power? And then evolved into my passion. And, I really knew my purpose is to bring the happy in people out. It wasn't back then, I didn't know how to verbalize it, but I knew that because there was a part of me that was not able to shine or speak, out that I knew others were experiencing the same thing. And I started feeling that that was my purpose, is to allow others to say, oh, it's not complicated. You can be happy. And then, it just kind of evolved from there. I spent 13 years in the Air Force. I became a drug and alcohol counselor. So I did a lot of family counseling. Saw how, what our thinking, how it impacts families and our behavior, and saw the whole structure of the military about, caring about people or not caring about people, depending on who was leading. And then when I had an honorable discharge and got out, moved to where my parents were at the time, which was in North Carolina, and I was volunteering at a senior center, delivering Meals on Wheels. And I still remember, it's one of those moments that, that stick in your mind. But the fitness coordinator said, Adiba, why don't you teach the chair aerobics? Because I had talked with her and I was so fascinated that she was doing that. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, she's like, you can do this. And that was 35 years ago, I guess now. And I taught it. And Janie, in that moment, I knew that's how I'm going to serve people. Not necessarily that I'm going to be teaching chair aerobics, but you just know that when you open that little window in people's lives and they're like, thank you so much. And it just resonated from there. It's like, I know my purpose. I didn't know how it's all going to come about.
Yes. And that's the beautiful thing, is that I guess you not knowing how it was all going to come about, and then you just trusted and then you just went with it. Right. And then it's what do you want to call that? Following the heart, following faith, like what do you want to, because
it's faith, it's inner voice, your gut, your intuition, I think that we all have God within us, and yes. He speaks, you're like, okay, here you are.
Yeah, it's that nudge and that whisper and that feeling and that sense of, well, I love that you mentioned the word resonate quite a few times. When you're in tune with something and something feels good, your body lets you know. When something doesn't feel good, it lets you know that too. And sadly, our bodies we've been sort of disembodied from that. Yeah. It's actually called interoception, that language of the body. And when you return to it and then you start learning to trust it and things like that, it does start to benefit you in so many different ways. And it's like, since you were a little girl, you've been listening to that voice. So obviously by this point, it's like you've built a relationship, a real relationship, true intimacy with your own self, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, which is why you're able to feel the amount of joy and vitality that you do. You take good care of yourself. Yes. Right? Because some people are just kind of like, well, I'll be happy when, and you help people with mindset around that.
Right. Because once we're happy to be happy, which is within us, we are born happy, right? It's resonating with that, then you attract what is happy, right? So it's not about creating happiness, is being in the happy.
How can we clear the clutter? How do we get back to that remembrance? How do we return to that space that already has existed? And sadly too, when we're kids, a lot of times we're put in situations where we're given a lot of extra responsibility, where they call it parentification, or and joy gets like sucked out of you pretty quickly, like even when you're a kid. So it could be really hard for people to get back to it and then not feel guilty about it.
Well, I think that what happens in family dynamics is when someone, because there are a lot of different family dynamics, right? So it depends on where you fall in there. True. That when you're happy, then there can be, whether it's in the immediate family or the extended family, it can cause some like, well, why is she happy all the time and she's getting all the attention? So it creates this I'm not sure what the right word, like
maybe like a negative feeling or a negative connection with it.
Right. Yeah. So for me, I know that I started doubting myself, right? So the little doubt starts coming in to like, well, maybe they're right, because I care about him and her and all that. So if I'm making them feel bad, then what I'm feeling is wrong, right?
That's it. That's true. And then you feel bad. It's like they don't mean to. It's unconscious maybe, but then you feel like you are innately bad.
Right, right. And that creates that doubt that I have seen in myself manifest to the point where it was, inside I knew it's possible. I mean, I know that's how I've been able to break through it, is I knew it is true deep down inside. But as I saw people around me, like, there's no such thing as, being happy all the time. And, you're just living in this fantasy world. And, what do you mean? And so I developed this doubt. So it took a lot of energy to, like, okay, am I doing this right? Should I say this? Do I? And then, and then you get
So
to a point in your life, you're like, I know I'm right. It's me and God, right? It's nothing to do with this person. The words are so powerful. I mean, so powerful. And um, it's funny because I haven't reached a place, because I really believe we evolve all the time. And like my overall business, I'm calling it Powerful Shift Wellness. So it's a power. It's a power that's full, right? It's not powerful, but it's having a power that is full to help you shift, right? So we're
yes.
always evolving, and I've always had that feeling, and I'm not in a place yet where I know that how that's going to manifest, but it's my words, my connection with people. I feel like it is my kind of power to make that shift for others, right? And by living my truth, I'm able to do that. So my name, by the way, means a writer, someone that writes literature and books and well-mannered. So maybe there's a connection there.
Oh, for sure. You're really living
Book
into your
in the
name.
future. What's that?
You're really living into your name.
So I might publish a book one of these days.
Absolutely, you'll have to. I'm sure it's already written now. It's just a matter of it pouring out of you. It's already there.
It's so true.
I also love how when you reflect back on the jobs that you've had and the places that you had an opportunity to work in, and I want to thank you for your service, by the way. The the wisdom, right? The experience, the connection, the learning that you got to take from each of those opportunities was basically being put into a bowl of ingredients that were
Yeah.
just like God was just mixing and mix. And it's like, okay, now here's the batter. Look at what you have in your batter.
Yeah,
You're
I
like,
love that.
whoa, that's so cool. And now you're like, and then you get to make all this awesome cake and like share cake with other people with your
It's
batter.
such a cool. I'm such a visual person, and I never heard that like that, and that's so awesome. I'll always remember this now.
Oh, that's so great. And it's also indicative of when I say sweetness, and sometimes people will hear sweet and kind and they think weak, right? But Adiba, there's a lot of strength in Adiba. But the sweetness is like, it's a sincerity. There's a purity and a sincerity and authenticity that comes off of people, that radiates off of people when they really are in a place of peace within. And
Yeah,
again, that doesn't mean that you don't get rattled, because as you evolve and grow, like you said, you always will. There's
yeah,
always new spaces or new places that creator is calling you into that can create a little bit of that, ooh, but
yeah,
you've been in that position so many times, and then you just lean into it.
yeah.
And so you build the fibers, and so I just love how creator works and how creator uses us. And I really admire you for surrendering into the servitude too, right? Like, so to say a servant, people hear that word and they're like, servant. And it's like, no, we're here to be loved, to return to love. And then how are you being called to give that love to others? And then you honor it. And so it's so cool too. Like, how fortunate do you feel to be a happy coach? You know what I mean? Like, oh, you love going to work every day, you help people be happy. And you also include movement
Yes.
into this. So you really are helping people, because there's the nutritional part to it, which I know that you're very much involved in and things like that. So is there anything that you would like to touch on, just the concept of like that holisticness of the mind and the body and the heart, and some maybe self-care practices that you use that really kind of help touch on all of those? Because you're a busy person, you got a lot going on, and I know that you figured out very practical, simple ways to be able to like hack joy and love in your day.
Yes, yes, I would love to share that. I wanted to really touch base real quick when you were sharing about your sweetness and it's not a weakness. I very can remember really well how that was a weakness in my mind because it was taken advantage of. And I like to, let people know that, don't work on not doubting who you are, because that's how people want to take control over, so that they want to shut down the happy and the joy in you. But it's really interesting because in the past, as you were saying that, I would have been like, oh, she's just saying that, that's not true. I know, people have told me. So that was really interesting to experience you saying that. And
Yes.
really being grateful for being that, not out of selfishness, but out of gratitude to God, right? It's like, yeah,
Yes.
he created me, he created you, he created creation. And just as much as I love you, I love me, in a sense of not selfishness, but
No, but right. It's humble. It's a humility.
yeah,
Yes.
yes, absolutely. So life has taken me, that, talked about the wellness center, and when it was mandated that I shut it down, financially, it was out of the question for me, to go on, but looking at it at that time, but then looking back, I was like, it was more of a little big nudge to go in a different direction. Because when that wellness center shut down, so many negative, toxic, unpleasant relationships also went away, from not just when it shut down, but just when I took over the center and when I became the owner, all that major shifts happened. It was like, I remember one day just bawling out of like this transformation happening. It's like, whoa, I'm done with all that. How, like, I'm I'm a good person. I don't have to really bow down to this negativity and try to make everybody uh, do the right thing or whatever it is, right? So it was
Yes.
this sense of a cleansing. When that shut down, it got to a point where it was like such a boiling point, and then it shut down, and I was kind of devastated. I was like, wow, now what? I'm supposed to be a business owner, I'm supposed to do this, and all these things that the community is supposed to, told me I'm supposed to do, that culture said that I'm doing, that's how I'm successful. It was done. And then I ended up with Amazon to make things work and bring income in. And 2 years later, here I am bringing yoga and meditation and mindfulness and health and wellness and nutrition to a corporate place, which, looking back, that was one of my thoughts. It's like, I want to reach more people, so
God always knows exactly where to place you. So
yes. Yeah. And I like that, the power part, because we are so powerful. And again, it's just like love is knowing that you have power, and being grateful for it, out of a sense that we have the power to impact others in such a positive way, in such a beautiful way, and not to be scared of that, because it can be, I believe, like, I was led to believe that it's scary, right? Like, who are you to think that? Or, like, that's just not, right, or whatever, wrong it is. But it's having that, after all that happened with the center, and then, just recently when things open up, even the manager of the site that I'm at, open to actually creating a space to have it just for that, as a wellness area. It makes me so much more present, as like, oh, this, you know I just bumped my toe, like in the past to be like, oh no, like, it's just, and that's how I practice. Like, we talk about self-care. Is self-care comes in that moment also. It's like, oh, I stubbed my toe, and taking that breath. And it's that moment, it's almost like, well, Adiba, maybe you needed to slow down for a minute, right?
Yes, it's literally using all parts of your life. That in
Right.
itself is true meditation, because you can go and do meditation and take time and get away and get into your zen, but it's really bringing the yoga into the life, right? Into just the everyday moments when you're hurting yourself, and it's like, oh, what does this really mean? What's another way I can look at this? And
Right.
you immediately doing that and then going into breath already starts to help the red blood cells and the white blood cells do what it needs to do to bring,
Yeah.
to bring the pain down instead of exacerbating it. You're like, oh, how can I help work myself down instead of work myself up? And then when
Right.
you were talking about power of voice, you know the story behind the way you described your story about your voice and what had happened in your voice, and sort of you opening it back up and wanting to express yourself and getting into a place now where you're able to, and then being called into arenas that, and when I say arena, I know it's not, well, maybe you will end up in an actual arena one day. Okay, let's just leave the room for that. But
Yeah.
every arena that's new and
Right.
bigger is always an arena. And so you were able to, when the calling came and when they asked you to do it, you're like, I'm ready for this, because you had been envisioning it for so long. So it's really neat to see things manifest itself too, when you say, like, that's another fun part of all of this.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's what I really feel my purpose and my calling is to uh, simplify living well and being happy and having joy. Because I feel like I complicated it by listening to all these different, today you got to do this, and then the next day someone else says you do that, and then, and that's where boundaries are important too. Is when we talk about boundaries, is about for me it was boundaries from quote unquote abuse, whether it's verbal or physical or whatever it is. But boundaries are also of people's thoughts and what they think should be and what they should do and what success is. And we've got to put, for me, is putting those boundaries and being steadfast on connecting with who I am as an individual, rather than who I am to be what I think they want me to be, right?
Right. It's like you built your own backbone. I'm glad that you brought boundaries up again, because the idea about when we were talking about sweetness and kindness, and those of us that are givers and like doing and things like that, people will take advantage of us. That is, but it can't happen when we start to wisen up and create boundaries and start to discern things wisely. It's not
Right.
always an easy thing to do, but once you flex it enough times, then you realize, oh my God, life is so much better when you have healthy, safe boundaries.
Yes. Yes. Because what will happen is, and I really don't believe it's the other people, it's our choice also, always. We have the power within us to create our life, right? And some people say, well, if you get in a car wreck, did you cause that? That's like a whole nother conversation, but in a sense, yes, because you're attracting the fears and the joy and everything, right? So when you start having those boundaries, it feels very uncomfortable, because say it's your best friend and you start saying no, and your conscious mind is like, oh, you can't do that to her, you can't do that to her, like, so it pulls you back into that conscious mind of being nice, whatever that nice is. And it's going to, so that's the struggle. But just like you said, once you hold that space, your friend is going to either transform as well, or her time in your life has passed and she or he is going to move on. And then working with that, not that you hurt that person because that's their choice, but it's time to manifest other people into your life. And it's just so beautiful. People can look at it in a negative way, but it brings me closer to my purpose and my passion and my reason for being here, which is, serving God not as a servant, like people think, but it's just really, like you said, it's just bringing that joy out. And when it's the right time for the right person, they will hear it too.
I appreciate your outlook. You have the paradoxical perspective, and it's like solutions just pop out at you. The silver lining just pops out at you, and then you're able to move forward.
It's when you recapture, because things happen to you that seem negative, it like sucks that energy out of you or that power out of you. So when you realize, for me, that it's there to keep me stuck, and when I make this shift, all that incredible, beautiful power is regained, and I have my power back. It's like, it's like all these things happen to suck the power out of us. But once we realize that we are in control, we're more powerful than that we get that energy back. And it just, like you said, it just disappears.
What are your like self-care non-negotiables, would you say, that you just like on a daily basis, or just a standard thing for you that helps you stay in that happy space? I want to just say this again, that it's not about remaining in that space all the time. It's just that Adiba knows what to do when heavier emotions come into play, and she knows how to process them mindfully so she doesn't stay in that state.
Yes.
So, it's not this fake, like happy, like, oh, stay happy all the time and let's ignore just everything.
And all the time, like you say, I'm, at work or talking to someone or out, and someone says something that just, I feel this like, oh, like not now kind of feeling like, it's just, oh, okay, well, I'm creating this. I brought this into my space for a reason. What am I learning from it? What are those emotions? And what I really is important to me, and I hope it can help someone out there, is that we don't necessarily have to really know the exact experience from the past in order to regain the power from that emotion. Like, you don't have to know, well, my neighbor beat me up and pulled my hair out. You don't even have to remember that. And that was so life-changing for me, because I went through like, what happened to me? What's wrong with me? Like, who did what to me? And trying to figure it all out. And you don't have to. You really have to know that this experience today is making me feel that way because it happened to me, something happened to me. And now I believe that I am that, right? So it keeps happening. And then once you acknowledge it, and I say, okay, no, I don't have to lose my power to that negative feeling anymore. I can take it. I'm going to expand. I'm going to grow. I'm going to be more of who I was created to be. Then those feelings start to go away. And that was so empowering for me. We don't have to necessarily, everyone is different, but we don't have to necessarily remember exactly or re-experience everything from our childhood or our past. There is healing without knowing that.
It's true. It's not like you have to go and live every single memory in order for you to be able to release the trauma. If you go back to, I can't recall if I mentioned the 5 wounds on here a little while ago, because I just did something else earlier and we talked about it. But there's rejection, abandonment, betrayal, injustice, and humiliation. And if you look up the 5 soul wounds, they each have symptoms. And so when you start to become very aware of them as you're moving through life and you get triggered and you start, you can analyze really quick, and you're like, oh, I'm feeling an injustice here right now. Is that something I'm projecting? Is this really happening? How can I remain neutral? Do I need to say something? Do I not? And you start wisening up. It's like a maturation, right? As we evolve. And that's why it doesn't really matter how old you are, or where you are in your journey, or what you've been through. Wherever you are at this very moment is a place where you can start to learn and grow.
What is the no negotiation is, I've got to, get my sleep in. I've got to get my nutrition in. I've got to get some kind of movement, and it doesn't have to be anything crazy. I always listen to uplifting music. With words that are, I find songs that speak to me. Sometimes it's like literally turn the radio on. It's like, Exactly. So there is no negotiating about, and then reading some scripture and little prayers that I like to say, and those allow me to meditate anytime. Also, is to be able to repeat. It's almost like a mantra and things like that, where it just it brings me present and brings me to realize how precious and small I am compared to what I'm making this huge problem be, right?
Yeah.
Like small in a sense of like it doesn't compare. Like it's okay because it is going to be okay. I mean, it really is, and believing in that, and some it takes practice. And we talked about. I was talking with someone else earlier. It's like a muscle. You just do it over and over, and that's where journaling comes in. Um, just writing things down, being grateful. I don't like for me, a practice is just being grateful by thinking it, even not always right. I do write them down too, but that helps me. Those are the go-to things for me is, once I make sure that I'm eating right, I do take my supplements, I, do cleanse and detox and exercise and make sure I get my sleep. But the quick get to are, little prayers, little mantras, songs, pop in a song. If I can't listen to a song at that time, sing it in my head, and those are just easy, quick things that they work for me every single time.
Yes, a lot of those are the ones that I use too. And you're absolutely right. And there's even science behind a lot of those too. So, this is a real thing. And even when we sing or when we're humming, that's like working on our vagus nerve, And so all of these little things that you can include throughout your day, you created a lifestyle like this. This is not even something that you have to think about anymore. And when you were describing the music and how it makes you feel, we can feel words. And it's almost like every cell in your body is like dancing, when they're hearing the song. And so you're putting joy into your cells when you hear a song that you really love. And music also oftentimes makes us want to move. So now, maybe you're singing and you're dancing now. So it's like extra.
Yeah, it is. It's extra. And I do, I've taught dance class also, some to belly dance to some Middle Eastern music. And that always had, just brought joy to everybody. So
I love it. I
I'm gonna
love
send
it.
you the link to that one song about the music. And music, and that song talks about even the birds chirp, every little creature sings, has music. It's a really cool song. So I'll send you the link to that. It's
Oh, cool. And maybe I'll even put it in the post or something in case, others want to enjoy it too. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners and our viewers before we wrap up this beautiful episode?
Well, thank you, Janie. This has been really beautiful for me too. I take every experience as an opportunity, knowing that it will help me grow and step into the better me over and over every every minute. So what I would like to, if I have to just kind of sum it up for everyone, is that believe in you as much as you believe in the one person that you care about the most. Because once we see that, we shift and we respect ourselves and we reach that happy joy within us. And you're worth it. And it can be done. Reach out to someone to speak to, learn, explore. It's just a beautiful place to be when you're living life out of love instead of out of fear. Just live life out of love. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful place to be. If anyone would like to reach me, you can find me on Facebook, Adiba Twigg. You can Google me. You can find me also Adiba Twigg on YouTube, Adiba Twigg. And then once you watch this, you can get hold of Janie and she can find me. But just go out there and treat yourself the same way that you would treat the person that you love and care about the most in your life. And you'll just be happy.
Beautifully said from the happy coach herself, Adiba Twigg. Thank you again, Adiba, for being with us. It's been such a wonderful time. I want to wish you continued blessings and success on all of your endeavors.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for supporting the mindfulness movement here at Rise Above TV. Your likes, shares, and follows are greatly appreciated because they help spread the love. Subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels for more mindful content. Tune in next week to meet another individual who's tapped into their power, passion, and purpose. Till next time, peace be in us.